Welcome to Season 4 of Outstanding Women Leaders, Witty and Wise Conversations. I'm your host, Katie L. Leeds, founder and chief owl at Outstanding Women Leaders, Owl Professional Coaching, an organization dedicated to empowering women leaders and the men who support us. Our podcast is on a mission to host 100 million witty and wise conversations that disrupt the way leaders think and inspire you to disrupt business as usual in your brain. That disruption begins with a set of rules to guide our conversation today. Rule number 1, nobody gets to be wrong. Rule number 2, nobody gets to be right. Rule number 3, everybody gets to be vulnerable. And rule number 4, everything is included. If your child walks in, the phone rings, we do not edit here. This conversation is exactly what it needs to be in this moment in time. We've asked our guests to join us via video to allow us to create authentic connection. Eyes are the window to the soul. You will be seen here. You will be heard. There is space for you. When this conversation comes to a close, I will ask our guests 3 questions. If you tuned in before, you know what they are. If you haven't, you don't want to miss them. But enough about me. Today, I'm excited to welcome Outstanding Women Leader, Vallie Prince. As her friends describe her, she's a woman who has traveled across many lands with a variety of characters. And as rumor has it, occasionally while dressed as a pirate. An Ohioan by birth and Knoxvillian at heart, Vallie is a mother, wife, and proud owner of 3 to 4 cats here in Knoxville, Tennessee. She's also a graduate or attended the University of Tennessee and then Arizona State University, where she earned her bachelor's degree in Anthropology, Archaeology and Religious Studies. So many questions there. And also earned her tea room owner certificate from IAP Career College. Since she took her first job in the mid-90s, Vallie has filled a variety of professional roles, including food service positions, store management for GameStop for 13 years. Spoiler alert, she did not get rich in GameStop. She did not get stock options. They took that away. She's been a restaurant consultant and trainer, restaurant owner, field lab tech for UT Archaeological Studies Group, a freelance book editor. Ooh, I'm going to need that for when I finish my book, and more. She enjoys an array of hobbies, such as reading in her personal library, which is over 7,000 books, and I'm very excited I get to go over and see these. Occasional modeling gigs, appearing on gaming and fandom podcasts like Called Shot Podcast and The Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy. After years of preparation and driven by a desire to spread her love of tea and teeny sandwiches, Vallie is currently in the process of opening her tea room and restaurant, the Kraken's Cup, in Fountain City, Knoxville. Even if you don't get a chance to go because you don't live anywhere in Knoxville, you should go follow the Kraken's Cup on Instagram because if you like tea. She's brilliant. She shares a bunch of really cool stuff. She's got an international audience as it is. So if you're in Knoxville, please go follow it because she needs you as well. Welcome, Vallie. I'll stop talking now.
Hello. It's nice to be here.
I am so excited. I want to dive into a lot of places. I want to know everything about the Kraken Cup, but first let's go backwards to all of these lands that you've traveled with a variety of characters. I told you today's episode, we're just going to break down her bio because it's so rich and full of so many questions. And yeah, so like a pirate, you're just going to take us around to different lands and share your travels with us.
Well, most of my travels pretty much stay in the continental U.S., but they are very rich in character.
You're a land pirate.
I am a land pirate. I've lived in Oklahoma and Arizona. I've traveled out to visit friends fairly regularly in California, Washington, Texas, up north to like New York and stuff. So I travel every chance I get because I love going places, learning new things, trying new food, visiting my friends, and I have friends all over the world. So I've been around.
You've been around. I find that people who travel, and a lot of people talk about traveling outside of the United States, but I find that people who travel inside the United States have a better understanding of the different types of characters that live in the United States. I'd love to know, what your take is on that and what you've learned just by living in different places in the US.
People are very different. It just depends on where you are. I loved living out in Arizona. It was very different from living in the South because over there, in the South, people are a lot more upfront friendly, hey darling, can I get you more sweet tea? out there, they don't know what sweet tea is. It's really sad, but
Arizona tea, they don't know what tea is out there.
I found one restaurant in the entirety of the Phoenix area that had sweet tea. Everyone else is like, what? Sugar and iced tea? No, that's an abomination.
That's also how I drink my tea. Is I'm sweet enough is what I always say.
Well, I feel that way now, but back when I first moved out there, I was very inundated in Southern sweet tea, and it just felt like home because I'd not been away from my family for any long period of time. My family's very close knit, so we all live in the Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio area. So moving out to Arizona was a huge leap for me, and so I liked having that little bit of home when I could find it.
Yeah. I've had a few leaps myself of moving around the country. What was your pull? Like what to leap over to Arizona, and what was any struggles you had adjusting?
A lot of it was the fact that I had just gone through a divorce and needed to get out of the area because it was one of those things where everything reminded me of just either good memories I didn't want to be reminded of just then, or memories I just didn't want anything to do with. I had friends out in Arizona because I had gone to the Renaissance Festival out there. My sister used to work at the Renaissance Festivals as a blacksmith. So I had gone out there a few times, had good friends out there, and thought it was a good place to go that was far enough away. I still knew people, and they had one of the best anthropology departments in the US. So I wanted to continue my education, get my degree. I had to leave UT because I was in a car wreck. And so I didn't finish my degree there. By the time I went back, I pretty much could pick anywhere I wanted to go. I wasn't stuck. So I decided to go out there. And I would say the biggest challenge was just being away from family. That was the biggest one. I remember the first Christmas, my roommates had put a roll of toilet paper under the Christmas tree for me because they knew I was going to cry a lot.
Couldn't get the Kleenex.
I know.
I can see why you're a land pirate now, because you can't leave your family too far.
Right. Well, just this past year, I finally got my passport, so now I can go places. Now I can do it.
Yeah. I also moved halfway across the country after I got divorced as well. Only I did it without knowing anyone, in my only child fashion. And it was for me, it was a great place to heal. It was just in a different location and starting over in a new life and trying to figure out those pieces. I imagine your car accident was pretty challenging for you as well to have how old were you?
Let's see, for that one, there's been a few. For that one, I was 22, about to be 23. I was literally 6 credit hours from graduation, and I had 2 semis hit my car. It tore my car into 3 pieces. So yeah, it was all kinds of fun. I walked away, but there was enough like neurological damage and stuff that I couldn't go back to school. I couldn't focus, had double vision. Like it basically bruised my brain. So it took years to get that sorted out. But yeah, it was kind of traumatic.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a traumatic brain injury of some type.
It is, thankfully, I think almost entirely healed. There was a lot of like PTSD and anxiety like that for quite a few years, but at this point I'm good. So nothing was broken.
Yeah. And what a miracle.
Yes.
I'm so grateful that you're here. So I get to meet you and you get to bring tea and team sandwiches to Knoxville. I'm curious about, car accidents and PTSD, because I know so many people that still suffer from PTSD from their car accidents. What has helped you heal the most?
A few things. First, I started looking into things like mala beads and mantras and stuff like that I could do in the car as a passenger, because I had a hard time being in a car with anybody driving. Yeah. And so I tried little meditations I could do just to ground myself. And then I reminded myself, ain't nobody got time for this. And I went and got a motorcycle license and learned to ride a motorcycle, and was like, you know what, if I'm going to get back in the saddle and comfortable in cars and back on the road again, I'm just going to hit the extreme. And so that was part of what I did, because it made me so anxious thinking about getting onto a motorcycle that I was like, if I can do this, getting back in a car and getting over that's going to be way easier. And it pretty much was. So I just, I pushed my boundaries, and then I found ways to kind of mediate my emotions. Just ways to keep myself calm.
Yeah.
So it was not easy, but
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a journey. I mean, I know I have a family member who it's been, 15 plus years, maybe 20 years now, and it's still tough to be a passenger.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my husband, I know I drive him nuts because I only recently let him start driving when we went places together. And I had to explain to him because we just got married in July, and I was like, we've known each other for 23 years. So he's been around through my car wrecks. And I was like, sweetie, it's nothing personal. I just don't like having a heart attack because I'm in the passenger seat. You're not doing anything wrong. So now he drives more, and I'm getting used to being a passenger again more often.
Mm.
So
Any tips for people that are acclimating to being a passenger?
find something to keep your focus. Like I said, either sometimes for me, it's just a simple little game on my phone, or like I said, I have my bracelets, my mala beads that I'll sit there and just count the beads on, just something that I can focus on that takes the anxiety out of the car ride. Also, whenever we drive, either I or he has our MapQuest, like mapping on. It gives plenty of notice if there's an issue ahead, so we don't have to lay on the brakes when we come up on a car wreck or construction. So just any little thing that allows preparation time, I guess. So you don't have that instant adrenaline rush. Because for me, that's what got me, was the adrenaline rush. After my car wreck, I couldn't ride roller coasters for a while. Not because I didn't like them, because that initial adrenaline rush just put me into panic mode. So for me, it was finding triggers and then avoiding them till I was comfortable.
Mm. Yeah. It's really, and you said multiple car accidents. So after almost dying and having two semis crash into you, you had more car accidents.
I had one before that.
Oh.
When I was a senior in high school. I had a car pull out in front of me, or truck pull out in front of me, and I T-boned it like right in the wheel well, destroyed my car. Thankfully, again, walked away from that one. Showed up to graduation on crutches, but otherwise fine. And then at the end of 2018, got T-boned into the passenger side where I was sitting, broke my arm. So that was a lot of fun.
Wow.
I think I'm done. I'm good. I don't need any more. That's all the excitement.
I think I'm done. Yeah. And I can't believe that you got a motorcycle license. That just blows my mind. Do you still ride the motorcycle?
I got rid of the one I had then. This was about 8 or 9 years ago. So I got rid of that one. I was overzealous and got a bike that was way too big for me. And it was gorgeous. I loved it. I loved riding it. But anytime that thing got set down, like even if it just tipped too far and I laid it down gently, I could not get it back up. So I have recently inherited my mother-in-law's bike, and it's being rebuilt for me to ride. So yeah.
Very cool. So pretty amazing. Almost dies in a car accident and then decides to ride a motorcycle. The badassery of you continues. I need to know about the 3 to 4 cats really quick. Do you have 3 or do you have 4? Is there half a cat? What's happening?
It's a funny story. The reason there is a 3 to 4 cat cap is because at one point I had 26 cats. And 26 cats is a little too many for most people.
Wait.
I lived in the country. I could do it. I had 8 inside and the rest outside. So after I started moving, I whittled back down to my core 3 cats that were my oldest, that had been with me the longest. I was like, okay, 3 cat limit. Everyone brings me their cats. If there's a cat that has kittens, they're like, we don't want to take it to the shelter. Can you take it? If they have a cat that's sick, they're like, we don't know what's wrong with it. Do you know what's wrong with it? I'm like, yes, but why are you asking me? Take it to a vet. So I have a 3 cat soft limit and a 4 cat hard limit. So there's that little bit of wiggle room if there's like a necessary cat. And actually up until about 2 weeks ago, I did have 3/4 of a cat. I was taking care of my friend's 3-legged cat. So we had the joke that there was enough room in the house for 1/4 of a cat. We just needed to find one. So yes, I had 3 3/4 cats for a year.
What I am learning about you is that you're very good about boundaries around things you need, right? You're like, okay, no more of these beads. Like, we need to just do something different. Let's get a motorcycle, right? Like, these things trigger me. We're going to avoid them and figure out how to be okay with them. And then we'll go back and do them later. Like, very, and then the cat rule. I love that. So right now in this moment, are there 3 or 4?
There are 3.
3.
Yes.
Okay.
There are 3.
Very cool.
Yep. I have a running 3 cats. I normally get a new cat every 3 years. So yes, so that way they always have friends.
Yeah. And so now we get to the fun stuff. So anthropology, archaeology, and religious studies. Go.
Yes. I knew when I was 7 years old that I wanted to be an archaeologist. From that time forward, that's what I wanted. And so I went to museums, I studied. My dad was a big fan of Indiana Jones and was actually like moderator for some of the early websites for the fandom and things. So I was always around this kind of stuff. And I decided when I got to college, that's what I wanted to do. Immediately went on track for an anthropology degree because archaeology is just a subset of that. Applied to work in the UT Archaeological Studies lab. And so I got to work out in the field. I was the youngest person on the team, actually out there digging stuff up. As I went through doing that, I was taking all of my electives, and I found out that for electives, I really enjoyed religious studies. And at UT specifically, I liked the African religions. I wanted to go in and get my master's and my PhD in Egyptology eventually. So by the time I was getting close to graduation, they were like, hey, you have so many credits in religious studies. Why don't you just get a second major? Like, well, that sounds like a great idea. So I got close to getting done, had that car wreck, was out of school for about 3 years. By the time I went back, enough of my credits had expired that I had to redo a lot of my classes again. And when I transferred to ASU, I found out they didn't offer certain classes. So I had to take almost my entire degree over again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 13 years of college. Fun times. So, but it was something I've always enjoyed. I've always liked history. I've always liked digging in the dirt. I mean, that's just been something fun, discovering new things, traveling, like I said. And it just got to the point where I decided later on not to get my master's degree in Egyptology, just because I had had so much going on. I really did not fill up to another, however many years of school at that point. So school's expensive.
Yeah, it is. I have a degree in history in secondary education, and I always thought I would get my master's. I would be a superintendent of school, maybe just principal, like, let's see. And then I got into the politics of it and realized those people have no power. They're just part of a system that sucks.
Yeah.
And now I'm to the point where so many women have degrees, like all of us are getting masters, like, please hire us. Look, we're qualified. And so for me, there's almost this, I've decided if I can't write a book without getting my master's, then I need to go back and get my master's, because everyone's told me the reason you get your master's is so that you can write a book. So that's where I'm at currently.
I know plenty of people that have written books that
didn't have to get a master's.
Exactly. Right. Got this.
Yes, that was my plan. I'd love to know more about what you've learned in African religions, because, as the US, we are so United States centric in our teaching, and we have no frame of reference for anything really that's outside of European history.
This is true. This has been years ago when I was really into studying it hardcore, but I know some of the main takeaways were they have a much more like tribal and family centric viewpoint and lifestyle. Whereas the US, it's like everything is this all encompassing rules and guidelines. And one thing I've learned is that the larger a group of people you try to govern, the harder it is to do that, because you have to take everyone into consideration, or you have to take no one into consideration. And with these smaller groups, they could easily do that. It's like, when you have a tribe and it's you want to set rules, it's very easy to govern by those rules. Also, one of my favorite takeaways was with the religions, there were not just sacred objects, but sacred times and sacred spaces. So say the same object that the kids could be playing with in the afternoon could be a ceremonial object the next day in the right location. And so their main thing there was if everything is sacred, then nothing is sacred. So it's having those times and places where things are sacred that give them that importance. So those were a couple of the main things that I learned. Also learned a little bit of Swahili. That was kind of cool. Learned how to speak some African religions that I don't remember any of now. But yeah, it was, like I said, it was a lot more localized, self-governing kind of ideals. And there's just so much more, and they respect the individualism of the groups versus trying to constantly meld them into a larger group, a big mixing pot like we have. They respect the fact that each group has its own traditions and languages, and those are things to be preserved, not necessarily to try to force it into a big amalgamation. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm hearing in that maybe is difference is because I always like to look at the religious beliefs and like the spirituality, and so you see it less as a controlling government entity, which is what the Catholic Church was. And you could argue still is, depending on where you're at, what country you're in. But this sounds like what I'm hearing is it's more localized, and that they're
more intimate.
Yeah, part of the mission isn't to go out and multiply people to be like them.
Right. It's very like ancestral. A lot of it is matriarchal in a lot of those kind of societies, which a lot of small societies are. So it's very opposed to what we see in most of our daily life in America.
Yeah, in Western religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because I feel like that's probably a gap in where I look at learning about different spirituality, religion, like whatever you want to call it. But when we look at societies, like we give them that label of society when we see several things that are there, and religion is one of those.
It's a main one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big one. And so it's and this idea that we just reject anything that happened before we, discovered science, and
Right.
is crazy to me, and such a like so much hubris there. Like, where's the humility of not saying, those people that built the pyramids, those people might know stuff that we should know.
Right. It wasn't just because we couldn't do it.
Right. And for example, the Civil War, if we knew that the Egyptians knew about honey, we could have prevented a lot of the deaths, because it was an antiseptic that would have every time we sawed a leg off, some honey on there would have been good. So it's always interesting to me, like where's the wisdom, like, and to look at African religions as well, as where's the wisdom from those ancestors? Because one thing that we haven't been great about for a cultural appropriation is traditions and like knowledge, right? Like gunpowder knowledge. Yes, let's appropriate that. But, Eastern medicine, I don't know about that stuff. Right. So I look at it as like, let's look at where is all the amazing things that each culture has to teach the other culture based on what their ancestors experienced.
Well, I always think it's funny that when we see something that either we don't understand or don't agree with, it's like, it's witchcraft. It's a plant. Just because you don't want to it's a plant.
Yeah, or it's competing somehow against this other belief system. Yeah, it's just, yeah, cool. So you've a lot of variety of jobs. You said GameStop, you met a lot of people. What have you, like, what's your biggest learning in having so many different professions?
I've done a lot of like personal learning on just how to deal with people. That was a big one, especially throughout when I worked with GameStop. I was a store manager, store leader there for, like I said, 13 years, 8 or 9 stores across 3 different states. And the one thing I always strive to do was learn how to better utilize people so they knew they were appreciated, and they knew how to, I guess, benefit from their attributes, because everybody's different. Everybody works different. Everybody learns different. And it took a while for me to learn you can't just throw the same handbook at everybody and expect them to succeed. And I saw a lot of other managers that were setting people up for failure by just saying, okay, well, you can't do it this way. That's how I'm told to teach it to you. So well, you fail. And so I tried to learn how to accommodate different learning styles, different needs, personalities. I had people that came to me that it was their very first jobs. They had no idea how to talk to people. Years later, they're running their own stores. One of them is actually going to be my general manager at the tea house. And so I've seen people that have taken, retail positions and learn different things from them, because I tell people, you're not going to be in this job forever. Very few jobs will you ever be in your entire life. But if you can learn new skills that you can take to other jobs, you've succeeded. So that was probably my biggest takeaway, was just how to better other people, because then that bettered my business.
Yeah. You started out saying you learned how to deal with people, but you just told a story of how you learned how to develop people. And I think that is when I think about failures I've had or learning moments, like that's really what I learned, that developing people as high school students, as a teacher, is different from developing adults.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then for me, the difference was just a mindset.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we all have this though as adults, where we have these expectations that we place on adults, and we hold to a slightly higher standard. We expect that kids are going to make mistakes. We expect that kids are going to fail, and we expect to support them through that. And when it comes to adults, we expect them to do it right the first time. It was in the handbook. Didn't you read it? And that same adult now, I mean, our generation missed out on the IEPs, but that same generation is like, whoa. My teacher just can't give me the syllabus and expect all of us to know what to do with the syllabus. Everything there's scaffolding and all these things that you do to help develop people. Yeah, so cool to hear the success stories. Like, you were a teacher essentially as a manager.
Yeah. And that was that was definitely what I took from it, because it was a balancing act. Whenever I first started there, of course, when you're very first new to a business, new to management, things like that, you want to go right by the guidelines, step by step. This is how you do it. And it was a development process, not just for developing them, but for developing me and my boundaries with my supervisors. Because there would be things that would come down the line and they say, well, here's what you need to do. This is our new program we're putting in place. Here's how you're going to teach it. And I would look at how they want you to teach this to your staff and be like, that's not going to work. It's like, it looks great on paper, but how can I make this function better with the staff of people that I know, or with actual humans? Because the people that write these handbooks don't work with the humans. They just work with the sheets of paper.
And so you have what every frontline manager has, and teachers are frontline managers of their classrooms, right? And their principal is their frontline manager of them as well. And you have to learn to manage up to these people who have no idea what's actually happening. And at the same time, you have to develop the staff around you with what you're given.
Yeah. Which isn't very much usually.
Oh, so amazing lessons that you've learned. And now you get to open your own tea room, tea and teeny sandwiches in Fountain City, Knoxville. And I imagine you're going to be a pretty cool place to work.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
This has been a long time coming. I mean, it's kind of been a hobby back burner thing for many years, but about 7 years ago, I started putting serious thought into it. A couple years after that, I was like, all right, I'm going to start actually setting money back so that I can leave this other job. Got to the point where I had already told my staff I was leaving. I had set money back. Then I had the other car wreck where I broke my arm. That threw everything for a loop. And then got back on the horse, after my arm healed up. And then it's just been a comedy of errors for 3 years now. It's like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. But I'm finally at a point where I should be able to be open in the spring. Finding a building has been crazy in Knoxville. So I should finally have a location. Waiting on that phone call today, actually, to get paperwork signed. I know I'm quite ready. And then be able to open the doors probably end of March.
So this comedy of errors, what's funny now as you think about this comedy of errors?
everything, because if it wasn't funny, I'd cry. If it wasn't a comedy, it'd be a tragedy. And it's been everything from COVID, which literally shut everything down, especially the restaurant industry. I mean, they took a hard hit. If I'd been open, I was supposed to be open in March of 2020. If that had happened, it would have been awful.
Yeah. And so bingo, there's your answer in the comedy of errors. It's so hard when we're living in the comedy of errors to find it funny.
Yes.
If I think about like God turning on a screen and watching me on TV, I'm like, this is hilarious. Like he is a jokester. Also found it. I filed my LLC for my business in January of 2020 with an entire business plan written based on hosting retreats and traveling around the country and doing workshops. And that didn't happen either. And I'll tell you what, it was hard to find it funny at times.
Oh yeah. I've had to rewrite my business plan and my financials multiple times now because of how the industry has changed, how people's buying behaviors have changed, just how my competitors have changed. I mean, part of my business plan talks about local competitors, lays out how they're different, how they're the same. Half of them have closed and new ones have opened. So much has changed in the past 3 years. Just like I said, trying to find any sort of real estate at a reasonable price. Knoxville's growing really fast. Yeah. And we've got a lot of new things that are happening. So you would have building owners that would put something on the market 3 years ago for one price, not lease it to anybody for one reason or another. Now that we've got, I guess, the baseball stadium moving back downtown, things like that, they're now putting the same property back on the market for almost triple what I looked at it 3 years ago for. So yeah, it's been pretty crazy.
And what has held your passion for teeny sandwiches and tea going strong through all of this? Because you're an archaeologist by trade. What's fueling this desire for you?
Well, when I first started working, it was in food service. I started working when I was 15 in fast food restaurants, waiting tables and steakhouses, all kinds of stuff. And I've always enjoyed it. My husband actually owns a restaurant in Lynchburg, Tennessee. So I've been overseeing that for over a year. And I just always enjoyed food service, just the people you meet, you're providing a service that everybody has to have. And I really enjoy tea. That's something I have liked ever since I was a kid. There are pictures of me and my sister having tea parties when I was like 5. But I realized after all my traveling, when I would go different places, I loved going to tea houses and getting a good full afternoon English tea. There's nothing like that in Knoxville. When I first moved back, we had maybe one place that did it. It closed. Closest place that does a full afternoon tea is in Chattanooga. So I wanted somewhere that I could go. And since nobody was opening it, I decided I would. And it was just one of those deals where people knew about oversweetened Lipton tea or badly brewed Earl Grey tea and didn't realize that there are tens of thousands of tea varieties. So I wanted to bring that, and more than just a tea house, actually bring the food that goes with the tea or food made from tea. I've got a whole menu of soup made from tea, salad dressing made from tea, dessert made from tea, just all kinds of stuff. It's a very eclectic menu. And
this menu sounds a little bit like witchcraft, all these things you're making with tea.
They're amazing. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We've done tasting parties. I've got the little sandwiches, your cucumber sandwiches and chicken salad sandwiches and scones and all that kind of stuff. But I want it to be a place people can come together and enjoy each other's company with some fun little food, a fun atmosphere. I want to be the Disney World of tea houses. I want people to come back just because they want to be there. You have an option of where you're going to eat. You eat every day. You get to choose where you go. I want people to choose to come to the Kraken's Cup because they want to try something new. They want to see what we have on the menu that we haven't had before. They want to introduce their friends from out of town to something different. We're going to have a little passport where as you try teas from around the world, you get a little passport stamp. So it encourages people to try new things and kind of engage in other cultures, which gets back to my anthropology degree. I like cultures. It's a good way I can introduce people to customs, traditions, flavors that they wouldn't normally have anything to do with. So I
That
can't wait.
is so cool. Can I put in the suggestion box? I love, by the way, this Disneyland of tea houses. Can people get house cups there that hang? And then when I come in, I can get my own cup.
So that's actually part of the Explorers Club. So that little passport I was talking about, it has like 28 different spots, little tasting wheels. Like if you've ever done a wine tasting, tea tasting, very similar. So you get all the stuff in there. When you fill out all 28 pages, you're officially a member of the Explorers Club. And yes, there will be house cups.
I love it. You have thought of everything. I went to a bar once that had house bar mugs, and I was like, they had to buy them every year. I'm like, this is genius. This is just a way to raise some capital at the end of every year. I loved this.
Yes.
So tell us where to follow you, where to find you, when to expect to be able to see you, all the things.
Well, the Instagram and Facebook, you can just look it up under the Kraken's Cup. It's very easy to tell. There's an octopus with a top hat holding a cup and saucer.
So cute. He's more like dapper than my owl. My owl is kind of cute. Your octopus is very dapper.
The eyebrows. Yeah. So if you look at the picture, his name is Octavius. He's got a whole backstory. So his story will be little by little about how he got his hats and how he's involved in the tea room. But yeah, so I've got that logo and everything. Instagram, Facebook, the website is called thekrakenscup.com. And it's got just an overview of the tea house. The menu, it's got our base menu because there will be more stuff, but it's got a base menu there. I've got events happening. I just did a tea class recently. I'm going to do another one probably in January. They are different things about tea. This one is what is tea. It's about the 6 varieties, and I have people try them. We go through their different flavor profiles, what makes them different, what makes them the same. It's been a lot of fun. So I hope people sign up for that because we have a lot of fun doing it. Where else? Hopefully I'll be opening in Fountain City by the end of March.
And for my birthday, hopefully you'll be open and I can host my birthday there and tell all of my British tea jokes, particularly the one where I don't drink tea because after we tossed it in the harbor, I was done with the tea. So thank you so much.
My mom was asking, why is it that when British people say things, they never pronounce the T? I was like, well, Mom, after what we did in the harbor, they hide their tea from us now.
Yeah, we never paid them back for that either. They're still pissed off about it.
I know.
So as we wrap up today, I have my 3 questions that I ask all of our guests. Vallie, what is your superpower?
My superpower is, as far as business and women leadership, is my retention of my staff. My ability to hire, train, and keep a good staff anywhere I've worked. My last GameStop that I worked at, I was there for 8 years. I had almost the exact same staff that entire time, either because they were there the entire time or because they would leave during the slow seasons and come back anytime I needed them. And not because of the paycheck, just because they wanted to be there and they wanted to work for me. And I've always felt that that was definitely my superpower because it's so unheard of at most jobs. Just retention is not a thing. They don't care about it.
Nope, it's not. And then they wonder why they don't have results.
Exactly. I'd rather have good people that are trained, that know what they're doing, that are appreciated and have buy-in and an investment in what they do every day. So I would say that's my superpower.
What's your purpose?
My purpose is to educate people in one way or another, whether it's by lending them books out of my library.
I can't wait.
I can't either. Or like I said, by teaching these tea classes. I like learning and I like sharing that. I was a substitute teacher for a little while. I've done different classes on other subjects. I just like spreading it, education, because if we don't continue to educate ourselves, we're just going to fall apart. Like the world's just not going to last if we don't make ourselves a little bit smarter. So
Purpose is to educate. I need to do your human design. I feel like you have to be a 5-1. What's next for you?
Tea and tiny sandwiches for everyone. That is my big thing, is getting this business open. And I am not thinking small. This is not a one and done. This is the beginning of a tea empire. I've already scouted out like 4 more cities for the next locations. So I plan to get this up and going and then spread it around the country.
The tea empire. I love that. I hope I get to do some stand up at every single one of your opening locations, because I'm going to perfect my tea comedy just for you. I've been writing some jokes. Like, I'm ready to nail this.
Excited. I really am excited for this.
Thank you for allowing me to insert myself into your dream by making my own comedic dreams come true. Teamwork. Vallie, it's been such a pleasure to get to know you and to share your story with the world. I think thank you for teaching us a little how to get through some PTSD and how to develop a place where people want to work by making people feel appreciated. And, thank you for someday in the future, perhaps getting me to try tea that tastes like coffee.
Yes, I'm gonna try, actually. I will get you.
Excellent. I always give my guests the last word today, or words. You're not limited to just one.
Not just one. I think my last words would be, especially since it's the time of year it is, we're getting to the holidays, appreciate people. Don't take them for granted. Whether it's your family, your friends, that clerk at the store that is overworked and underpaid, just appreciate people, because they won't be there forever and they're doing their best. So that's probably my last word.